Hey guys, this is Jennifer from the Shooters Mindset, and we are live with episode 403. We have our co-hosts here tonight. Greg Cannon, how's it going?
Good. How about y'all?
Doing well. It's not Friday yet, but that's okay. I'll survive a few more days. And our other co-host, Corey, how's it going?
Yo, I got a great workout and I stuffed myself at dinner with my girlfriend, so I'm good.
You usually are always tired from matches.
Feeling great today.
Feeling good today. All right. And tonight, our guests, which is who everyone really wants to hear from, not us. Our guests are Nick Thayer and Jared Halbert from TheTacticalGames. Some news tonight and some after actions. So for anybody that's unfamiliar with you guys, one at a time, if you can just tell us kind of your background in athletics and the tactical games and shooting and kind of a little about yourself.
I'll let Jared go first. He's way more impressive than I am.
So I started shooting three gun probably, I don't know, it's probably about 10 years ago now. And then right when I was kind of winding down on that, I found the tactical games and started competing there. And after a couple of years of competing, I ended up buying the company from the previous owner, and just recently passed it along to Nick, who now it's his baby and problem. So and now I'm just recently back to competing again. So I'll let Nick go now.
My name is Nick Thayer. I am the soon-to-be owner of the Tactical Games. I started shooting actually as a Tactical Games competitor. That was my first foray into any type of competitive shooting sport. So in 2020, I was introduced to it by a guy that I had met in an event. He showed me their Instagram page. I went out and I bought a pistol and a rifle, and 2 weeks later, I competed in my first tactical games and my first shooting match. So I went in having just screwed my optic on top of my my rail in the wrong spot, and without zeroing it. And I remember I met Jared at that match. I met a bunch of people at that match I'm still great friends with, but I remember hearing them talking about zeroing their guns, and I'm thinking, like, what the hell is zeroing a gun mean? So that was my foray into shooting, and that's where I started.
I think that's so. One, I met Nick because he ran up to me, and I had already been competing for about a year and doing pretty well, and like he recognized me. He ran up to me, and with his arms out, he was like, "Hey man, I follow you on Instagram. I just bought two brand new guns and just came here." And I was looking at him, I was like, "Oh no."
Yes.
And little did he know, the night before he thought he was gonna, game the competition and get a good trigger in his gun. So he stuck an AR trigger in a SIG, whatever it's called. MCX. So that doesn't work.
How did that work out for you?
It works really well on the first shot.
So the remainder of that story is I went up to the line without op checking it because I had no idea that I was supposed to before the match started, and I pulled the trigger and nothing happened. And that's about how my tactical games career went for a very long time. So
Sounds great. Sounds like you did exactly what you're supposed to do. Buy a gun, go compete.
yeah, that's it.
To be honest with you though, man, like that's probably the story of, I would say there's not a lot of people that have the confidence to go buy two brand new guns and just show up. But there's at least 40 or 50 people at each match that, like, within the last 2 months, 60 days, have purchased one or the other and have gotten a friend that shoots or whatever to kind of run them the lowdown of how a match runs, and they're in there doing the thing. So I think I mentioned it before, but they, a lot of people will already have the fitness components. They're like, "Hey, I'm going to be good at half of this already. So and I'm just going to go shoot guns and have a good time." So, but it's a common story where we're at.
I mean, that's kind of a cool way of looking at it, where you could either be like really confident with one or the other and not so much care about whatever it is you've never done before, and it's still fun.
Yep. So typically, not typically, by rule, the people that are good shooters that show up may have zero fitness component, and they're still going to show up and do very well. The people that unless you shoot the 2-gun stages for Instagram and not like for score.
Whoa. Whoa.
But
My first run on the stage. Didn't shoot the white guy.
but now the people that come in from the shooting backgrounds, they'll have better scores, but the people that come in from the fitness backgrounds, they look like they're doing better when they're out there. Like they're finishing the events and stuff like that. But they may not have hit a target, but they finished, so.
Jared's absolutely right. So my first match, I remember I finished like I competed in the intermediate division. So if we're going to get into that later, I won't get too much into it now, but it's the entry level division. I finished probably 4 to 5 minutes before everybody else in my division. I remember just sitting there on the line, the start finish line with my hands on my hips, just real proud, real sure of myself, just peacocking out there. And then I saw the scores come out and I was like, how the hell did I finish second to last? Or like, it was because I went and saw my target and there was just like, it was like it had never been shot before. So that's how it happened.
Oh,
That's
you have
hilarious.
to realize those penalties are pretty severe, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You literally, you have to come out and compete to figure out exactly how severe misses
Oh
are.
man.
It's
Oh yes.
if you miss, like you're in trouble. You got to shoot at least 75-80%. Like if you're not shooting 75-80%, you're in trouble. So
Would you say like running back and forth to get one bullet severely like emphasizes that fact?
yeah.
Man. So what kind of event types do y'all have in the tactical games? I know that it's not just one type. You don't have to be like CrossFit extraordinaire. You do have different event types of events and all that. So kind of talk through what those are.
Yeah, sure. So we have our main tactical games format, and in that format, there's a ton of different divisions. So there's an intermediate division. That's kind of the basic entry level people that are just new, whether they're new to the shooting sports or new to their, kind of just starting out their fitness journey. That's an opportunity for them to come out and really start to just get their feet wet in either one of those disciplines. We have the tactical division, which is designed more for people that might be in law enforcement, people that might, be in the military. The weights are higher than the intermediate group, but it's for people that don't have the 2 hours a day to train, to work on shooting, to work on fitness, because our sport really does require both of them. And we have masters divisions that are designed for the older crowd. They're very competitive. They're huge divisions. So women's 40 plus just started this year. I don't know if you qualify for that or not, but that was a new one.
That kind of hurt.
Yeah, I don't. I'm a dude. Sorry.
You gave the arm raise like you were excited about the Masters. So that the Masters division, we have a 40 plus and 50 plus. For women, it's just the 40 plus. For men's, it's 40 and 50. Once we get more 50 plus female competitors, we'll create that one as well. And then we have the elite division. The elite division is really kind of, we joke about it, but it's departed from reality. It's, you see 300-pound sandbags, you see 12-mile runs, you see things that aren't, if you don't have the time to dedicate to training for it, you're probably going to get up there and you're going to get stopped at a few points during the competition weekend. So there's opportunities for all of that. And that's the tactical games proper. We also have the team division. And that's really designed for people that might be a little bit shy about coming out to compete and just being out on the stage by themselves for the first time. So you can grab a friend, grab a partner. I'm sure Corey would love to compete with anybody that asks him. Just send him a message and he'll show up.
Just slide right into my DMs.
We just capped off our team event. So last weekend, we're doing 2 of these a year, and that's the entire match is all team divisions. So whether it's elite, tactical, intermediate, whatever it might be, you team up with another partner. Jared kicked my ass this past weekend in the team event. So that was one of our favorite matches of the year, though, because people come up and show up there ready just to have fun, have a good time, and enjoy themselves. And when you're working with another partner, you can really do that. Then we get into some of our other disciplines. So this year we're launching a TAC 2-gun match. So that's a shooting sport, right? The tactical games is a shooting sport. TAC 2-gun is a shooting sport with a small fitness element. So it might be, if you guys saw any of the stuff that we did this weekend, there was a breacher door, right? So that kind of thing, it might be 10
Tell
seconds.
me about that.
Yeah.
How did that go? I saw a lot of guys not hit it in one try like they thought they were going to.
Oh, there was a lot of egos that stepped up to that. And that's like, we love to crush egos here at the Tactical Games. There was a lot of egos that stepped up to that, thinking that they were just going to swing that thing as hard as they could. And it was gonna just go smashing right through. And the best part was all the cops, all the law enforcement officers that stepped up, like the guys that are breachers on their SWAT teams and stuff, and expected just Thor, Zach Rodman, 6'5", 245 pounds, just a massive, massive human being. He told us he's probably broken down 200 doors in his career. He's a SWAT lieutenant. He works on the narcotics unit. It took him 2 shots to get that open. So I was pretty happy with that, to see that. So that's kind of the TAC 2-gun format. It's a lot of shooting, small parts of fitness. And then we have Sniper Challenge as well, which is kind of our answer to PRS, right? Same idea, long distance shooting with a small element of fitness. So you're going to do something like maybe get a sandbag up over something and then move into your shooting positions. The second day in that match is generally you're moving and shooting. So you'll have like a 3-mile walk where you're going to carry everything that you're shooting with, and you're going to shoot from multiple positions as you carry through the courses of fire.
So day 2 is best described for like you guys and probably y'all's audience to understand, is probably best described as a running gun, but a PRS running gun. And we do shoot pistol, but it's just like it's a very small, it's basically just like you can check the box that yes, you're proficient with a pistol. And
you point the pointy end.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this year in the I don't remember the name of the division, but we have a division that is designed really for PRS shooters, that doesn't include the fitness, and this year won't include pistol for the Sniper Challenge for anybody that wants to come out and just shoot the long distance stuff and not have the pistol in there.
I think they call it like slick.
That's it. Yeah. Division.
Yeah.
What distance do you guys shoot out at that?
At Reveille Peak, I think was it 1600 or 1200?
1200 is, I think, for bolt is 1200, and I think for gas is 700. Maybe it's 600.
It's 7 or 8 for gas. I want to say it's 8 for gas.
Why you gotta hate? Why can't my gassers just? Can I sign up as gas and go bolt?
So the reason why we stopped at 8, really, is the format lends itself really well to a 3-gun style long range stage. And if you come out with a 1 to 10 on your 3-gun rifle and you shoot the gas gun division, you will be competitive.
That makes sense.
And the best part about it, like for me, the reason why like I want to get my 3-gun rifle, I'm going to go shoot it, is you get it's normally somewhere between like 12 and 16 stages in one weekend. And if you like, Corey, you shoot 3-gun, but a typical match will have like 1 or 2 long range stages. So if you think about it, like that's an entire year or 2 worth of experience in one weekend of shooting long range stages in 3-gun. So you can very quickly sharpen your skills and become good in a match environment doing that stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool too, because there's a lot of guys that will get asking if we have like a recce division in PRS. And like they obviously don't watch the videos, and like our demographic is not what we would call runners. But I mean, like you're saying, a 1 to 10 and a 3-gun rifle, that sounds like a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah. And it's you can get into the like, I don't know what they call it, but I think it's a slick division, and you can shoot all those divisions with your 223. But that we do have a recce division. So and that's basically built so the max magnification on the rifle is 10. And so the gas gun division, there's really no limits on what you can do to your rifle. The The recce division is a 1 to 10 bipod. Like there, I don't think there's many restrictions
Yeah.
at all, except I think it's just a 1 to 10 optic. You can't have anything over 10 power on your gun.
Yep, and you can
Okay.
only shoot 223 or 556.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's solid.
So
That's-
it's
I-
specifically, that division is specifically for pulling your 3-gun rifle off the shelf and going and shooting a match.
Or just anyone that shoots tactical games, because I mean, I didn't
Yes.
see another 308. It's everyone shooting 223.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta be
That's
different.
sweet.
Oh, sorry. The final one that we have is our universities and our trainings. So we do what's called training day. These are kind of getting put on all over the country right now. We have a pre-designed program that our instructors all over the country put on these events once a month, and they meet and they go through 3 or 4 different drills and then run mock stages after that. We do tactical games universities, which are 2-day training courses really designed for those new shooters coming in to get them proficient with their pistol and their rifle. So no fitness involved in the tactical games university. It's really just rifle and pistol proficiency. And then as we were just talking about earlier, the athlete camp is one of our big things that we do. That's a 3-day, really intense training seminar where we get instructors from all of the instructor, or not all, a good majority of instructors from inside of our sport come together and meet up. I think we've got 55 people signed up for it this year. We'll split some time between the range and the gym. I know we're going to go over red dots, LVPOs, just some 2-gun stuff, because we're really starting to introduce more 2-gun shooting into our sport instead of just the bullseye shooting that we're kind of known for. So lots of opportunities to compete in shooting sports, regardless of what discipline you might come from. Lots of opportunities to come out and get some training from people that have fitness backgrounds, that have shooting backgrounds, and lots of opportunities to have fun and meet the different communities that we have.
That's awesome. I love that y'all are doing the training camps and the university thing, because for people not like us, like me and you, Nick, like we're not scared to just pick up a gun that we've got in the safe and walk out and do a different type of match. But for like a guy that like maybe hasn't even shot a gun in competition before, that's so much easier to sell to them, because then they know exactly what to expect.
So that's what we have. So we used to have a deal called the skirmish, right? And that was a
Yep.
1-day, like you could think of it as a 3-gun regional.
Yeah, Jeremy did those
not
at
a-
Triple C, right?
Not a 3-gun, not a 3-gun
Yeah.
regional, a 3-gun nation, like monthly match at a
Yep.
local range, right? But what we were finding is that new people would show up to those and be like, hey, I'm going to go to one of these, and then I'm going to go to an actual like big event. And those people, we saw that they were coming into the bigger events, and they had been to a skirmish, and they weren't necessarily like as prepared as they could have been, or maybe should have been.
Okay.
So we changed it to what we call the training day now, and it's the same people, same days. But
Yep.
what we do is we go through, they start dry firing. So in the morning, so like if you're already proficient with a gun, the first like 30 minutes might be kind of boring, but it's very useful as well, because everybody can dry fire. But you dry fire for maybe 15, 20 minutes, but really it's just weapons manipulation and learning how to safely holster and unholster and all that stuff. And literally walk it from there to like 2-shot drills, or 1-shot drills, 2-shot drills, 3-shot drills, start going over transitions. And the last one that I was at, there was 4 people from my gym that had never picked up a gun before. And
Oh wow.
by the end of the day, they didn't look like they were, veterans with guns, but they definitely look like they were proficient. You wouldn't be worried about shooting around them type thing.
Yeah.
So that it's been much more successful in preparing people for their first match, like even whether it be a tactical games match or a 3-gun match or USPSA, like we're teaching them the range commands, all that other stuff. So like we're preparing them for the shooting sports really. And it's pretty cool.
Do y'all pair them up? If you have somebody brand new that comes that is like, hey, I'm fit, I'm going to beat all y'all, but I've never shot. Do y'all like pair them up with someone, or have someone that kind of helps them with safety and just making sure that or do y'all like do a safety brief at the beginning, or?
So there's a safety brief at the beginning. Then we split everybody up. It's like if you're new with guns, raise your hand. They go to one side. And if you're not new with guns, you go to the other side. We know most of the people that are experienced, and we pair the experienced shooters with a new shooter. And when you're on the firing line, you're on the firing line in pairs. So there'll be one new shooter, one experienced shooter, and that experienced shooter is right on their shoulder, like making sure the safety stuff is going through, and helping them with, I mean, even how to do a bolt release on a AR-15. Like, they put the mag in and then they look and they're like, I don't know what to do.
I love that though, that you do that and have the experienced shooters, pair up. PRS, everybody in PRS is super helpful. So I don't want it to sound like I'm not saying that they're not, but a lot of times what you see is the really good shooters. I mean, everybody wants to shoot with their friends, right? So the really good shooters get on one squad, and then you have a squad inevitably that's a lot of new people, all on that one squad.
Yeah.
So I love that you do that and pair them up. I think that's so valuable, and it makes them, want to come back because they learn and people help.
We may talk about it a little bit later, but one of the reasons why we squad the way we do, which Corey came in a little late to the competition he went to, but Saturday morning.
I got approval.
Yeah, Saturday morning, what we do is you come out. Nobody is squatted Saturday morning, the first day of the competition. We separate everybody out into their divisions, and one person that's going to be responsible, like the RO for their first stage, walks up with a bunch of clipboards and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, groups them together and hands them a clipboard and says, y'all are on a group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, groups them together, hands them a clipboard, y'all are on a group. And really, Corey was asking about why we don't do like half day format and stuff. And really the reason why so many of us have become friends in the community is really like a big community, but it's a tight community, is you're forced to shoot with everybody. Like you don't get to shoot. If you happen to be standing close to your friend when we're calling out people, then you might get to shoot with them. But by the end of the day, like we have zero complaints about our squatting. People actually prefer it because it's like, man, I get to meet 4 new people today. And then having the like 2 hours in between stages, some people that come from the shooting sports are like, man, 2 hours between stages, I just want to shoot and get out of here. But usually by the end of the weekend, they've made friends with some people, and that 2 hours ends up being like the time between the stages flies, and you kind of wish that you had more time to hang out with your friends while you were there. So
no, you definitely saw that. Like I could absolutely see people had formed like groups that, I mean, they might have just met, but a lot of people talking to a lot of other people. So explained that way, I could see how it was actually working in Texas. Like definitely.
Yeah. So it kind of happened by happenstance. Before, people will sign up for a Tactical Games weekend in 8 months and say, I'm going to start training and get in shape. And we all know how that goes. Like January 1st, they're like, I'm going to get in shape. And then so it kind of happened on accident, because we'd have 210 people signed up for a match and then 175 show up. Right. So you would have some squads that we would pre-do the squads. And you would have like some groups that might have 1 or 2 people in a squad, and then like the next squad had 5, and the next squad had 5, and the next squad has 3. And so
it's a nightmare.
We squatted on Saturday mornings as a time saving thing to compress the amount of squads that we had. And then we figured out, it's like, hey, everybody is like talking to everybody now. Like it's not like you split up kind of the groups, and people got to talk to people they normally don't get to or wouldn't have otherwise, and it ends up much better.
Yeah. So kind of switching it up, last time you came on, you were the owner. Technically, I guess you're still owner, but you guys made a huge announcement, and then there's a new owner of the Tactical Games. How's it going? Does everyone have a lot of free time? Is everything working out?
I still own it. I would say that I'm definitely it's probably been what, Nick, like 3 weeks, a month, maybe longer.
3 weeks. Yeah.
I would say I'm probably the most silent owner that like I'm not technically, it's just because we haven't signed the paperwork yet. But I'm not in day-to-day activity. I haven't been in a meeting in 2 weeks. I didn't not because I care. I mean, it's a team match, so not that I would care if I knew what the programming was going into last weekend, but like I had no idea that the breaching door was going to be there. I knew Nick was making a breaching door because we had talked about it like 2 or 3 months before. But when I got there and saw it there, I was like, no freaking way he got that thing right. and like the owner part of me was like, I hope he has two, because if that thing breaks, we're
Oh, yes. So speaking of breaking doors,
yeah.
you know, in USPSA, how like you always pull the door open?
Yes.
That's because if you met Eric Dewberry, my 6'5"
Yes.
ginger friend, yeah,
Yes.
we did 1, 2 back to back going through a forward opening door, and we tore the whole wall down with the door out of it.
Oh,
So yeah, always build 2 doors.
Gotcha. Yeah. So but anyway, yeah, that's we made the announcement, and so technically on paper I own it. But I mean we're just waiting on the lawyer to finish getting the paperwork together so that we can like officially switch it. So it's as switched as it can be without it being, you know, on paper
Yeah.
that way. So
Nothing's on fire yet, so that's going well.
the good part is at the end of this month I get to fire everybody.
Just hire them all back immediately. You're good.
Yeah. Nick gets to hire everybody. A lot of people don't understand how business ownership works, but like it's a DBA, and like the actual LLC name is like whatever you want to make up, you know, like,
Yep.
and it's a DBA that switches, but the previous company ends, like it's, and then the next company starts. So, and the DBA carries on.
Yeah.
So
Nick,
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
sorry. Is it all the things you thought it was going to be in the first couple weeks?
Well, so I obviously Jared taught me a ton. I mean, I came in from big business. I came in from the defense contracting. So I had an idea. I ran a big program in the military for the military, and I had experience in business. What I didn't have experience in was small business. So Jared taught me all of the things that I didn't know, the things that I didn't even know to look for or to understand. You know, there was a lot that I learned over the past couple of years. So it's just been the application of the knowledge and the things that I've learned just in 2 weeks. Some of the things you wouldn't, you know, we are a big, small company, right? We're just making that transition from small to medium size, but we interact with a lot of large companies. And I think a lot of people, because of the amount of matches we put on, because of the amount of training we do, because of the amount of things that we have going on, I think people assume that we're much larger than we are. But a lot of times when you call, you know, it's like, it's me answering the phone, or it might be one of our other couple employees answering the phone. So it's, there's a lot of responsibility, and Jared will leave a big hole, obviously, being gone. He was a huge part of the company, but we'll do everything that we can to keep it running as is. Everybody keeps asking. The question I get the most often is, well, what are you going to change? Oh, you know, I mean, nothing. I love this sport. I love the way it is. You know, like what if it's not broke, you don't fix it. You don't just go out and just make wholesale changes. There's so many things that I love about what we've been doing, and the foundation that Jared built is solid, and I just want to continue to run off of that and continue to build off of that, and, you know, hopefully grow to the point, you know, we've been talking about it at ESPN, right? I want to be on ESPN one day. That's where I want to be. I want everybody across the country to believe that, you know, AR-15s aren't this evil, terrible thing that, you know, they don't know anybody that shoots. Now it's like, oh, my cousin down the street shoots. Oh, like, you know, this person shoots. Like realizing that there's a ton of people in this country that are part of the shooting sports, and just continue to grow and expand that for sure.
And Nick has had when I hire people, a lot of people don't work out when they work for me, because I don't do well if you have to be micromanaged and be given lists on what to do. So I give people a cone to work in, and it's like, this is your area to take care of, and I hired you because you're a smart person, and fly away, little butterfly, like go do your job. And whether it's good or bad, really the only time that like I really stick my foot in the door is if things aren't going well. And, if things are going well, I figure it back out, get it back on the path and move on. And, so some people can work well in that environment, some people don't. But what it is very easy to see when you are doing that is the people that are capable of working autonomously and the people that are not capable of working autonomously. And within a couple of months of Nick working for me, he had free reign to make the choices that he needed to make. And so a lot of people will see it as like, oh well, Nick's in control now. Nick's been in control and for a while, and there's really not much that if we did make a change, it wasn't made without Nick knowing it, right? And without me getting Nick's opinion on it and thinking about it and having a lot of discussions about it, stuff like that. So it's a lot of the things that are going on may have been Nick's idea to begin with. So last weekend, like if you look on practice score, the match doesn't look that big, but it was a team match, so each one of those names in practice score represents 2 people. There was roughly 200 people competing last weekend, and then family, friends, like there was probably 1,500 to 2,000 people there at any given time over the weekend. And each person that comes, it's like a big event to them, so like their parents come, their wives, husbands, their kids, they set up tents and picnic tables and all kinds of crap, and they spend the whole weekend out there. And everything ran on time. Corey, I mean, you saw how like there is a spreadsheet, there's a time on that spreadsheet, and you show up. And
and to be fair, as soon as it said it was going to start, you were starting. And if it was middle stage,
and everything ran like it should have been. There's things that I noticed that nobody else would notice, right? So like just your average everyday competitor walk through thinking things. I noticed things, but they weren't big things. And so it's Nick's been a shot caller here for a long time. It's not like oh my God, I just threw him into the deep end. Like he was in the deep end already. So it's going to be a smooth transition.
Yeah, and in that, Jared is critical, right? It's and not to a flaw either. Like Jared is critical and understands that his criticality and the things that he contributes to a conversation is looking from the outside and pointing out the things that could go wrong. One, which helps you prepare for anything that's going to go wrong, like the breacher door, like we just talked about, right? A lot of issues have been solved before they ever came up because Jared was critical about the things that we went into a meeting, we talked about, we reviewed, we discussed those conversations. Like I'm before all this, I was just kind of like just fly by the seat of my pants, like we were talking about, Corey. Now it's a lot more planning. It's a lot more looking and assessing, well, what could go wrong? What's going okay right now that needs to be improved upon? A lot of those things. So like these are things that I learned. Every leader that I've ever had, any person that I've ever worked for, I've always tried to take something away from them. And that's definitely, Jared was a great leader and it continues to be a great leader, but I learned a lot from him in that regard. That's prepared me for what's happening now.
Yeah, some people call it negative, but it's not negative. Critical. I'll walk up and it's like, hey, it's 7:03 and the spreadsheet says 7 o'clock and we haven't started yet.
But there's a downstream effect to that, right, Corey? And you understand from competing now, there's a downstream effect to that because we run on a schedule. I've shot 3-gun matches, I've shot, carbine matches, I've shot a bunch of different stuff now. And I see how just kind of willy-nilly shit goes at these matches. And it's like, you might shoot now, you might shoot later. Our matches need to be run on time because nobody wants to leave at 9 o'clock at night, right? Nobody wants to leave. No. It kind of used to be that way. So we run on a very strict time schedule to ensure that when you show up to your stage, it's time for you to shoot. So nobody gets left out. Everybody understands where things are.
Fastest way to frustrate me is to have things running late.
Everybody.
It's a snowball effect. Like if you start late, then it's going to take that much longer. And then it just,
So-
usually if a match is starting late, it's not very well organized, which means that every stage gets a little bit later and a little bit later. And then you're out at like 6 o'clock. I mean, I've been at matches before, PRS, not tactical games, but I've been at PRS matches before where we were still out there. Like it was starting to get dark and it was like, we have to stop.
Yeah, so we plan on being anywhere between like 15 and 20 minutes late until about 11 o'clock. And 11 o'clock is the first big transition where, so like in 3-gun, you shoot a stage, your squad moves to the next stage, you shoot again.
Yep.
And in our sport, there's 4 main stages on Saturday going on, and your entire squad is at one, or your entire division is at that stage. So not only are you shooting the same environment that the people in your division are shooting, but you're with all of them at the same time. And the other good thing about that is after the first division has shot a stage, if there needs to be something adjusted, when that division leaves, we can make the adjustment. Because like everybody in that division now has shot that stage the exact same. Everybody in that division has moved off of that stage and will not be back. So now we can make an adjustment if we need to for the next 2 or 3 divisions when they come in, because then those divisions now will all shoot the same exact stage. So we can make
Despite
that.
what everyone says, divisions are separate and it's not an overall race.
Yeah. And the other thing is we build an hour in for that transition from like when division, when the elite division moves from stage 1 to stage 2, there's an hour for that brief, for all that other stuff. So it only takes about 30-35 minutes. So if we're 15-20 minutes behind when we do that first transition, we're on time. And we pretty much, we know on Saturday we're going to be 15 to 20 minutes behind until about 11 o'clock, and then we're on time again.
Okay.
That's a really good strategy. Building in to let yourself stay ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Kind of do that at work. Just kind of pencil in. I'm pretty sure I'm going to fall behind here. So then if I do everything as fast as I think I can, then I'm ahead of schedule and I'm an amazing employee.
Right.
So one of the things we mentioned earlier is that you guys deal with some really massive companies. So you guys work with Under Armour as a title sponsor, and we normally don't see title sponsors so involved with the sport, especially non-endemic ones. From your perspective, what does it mean to have a team from Under Armour at your events?
Yeah, I'll lead off with that one. It's been incredible. In our match, in our series, and what we're doing, the involvement of our sponsors is key to them seeing ROI. So when they come out, they get involved. Competitors they're a bit apprehensive if you're just a name on a t-shirt, from my experience, right? If you're just a name on a t-shirt, they see it, they might get some correlation to the sport, but overall, like, it's a prize on a prize table that they're taking away and a logo on the back of a t-shirt. When you come out and you get involved, in Under Armour's case, if you actually compete in the sport, right, they've got guys from their team, from their sales team, that are out there running and gunning with us, right? One of their guys, Chris May, is a 23 or 24 year Marine Corps veteran. He was a recon Marine. He's out there kicking ass. He's just getting after it, right? And that's what their team is really about, and what their involvement has been in the sport. They didn't want to just be a name on a banner. They wanted to come out there and they wanted to have a presence. They wanted to have boots on the ground. So they bring their sales team out. They bring their regional sales reps out. They bring these people and they show them. I mean, for all of us, it's great, right? Because they're showing them what the shooting sports really are. Because a lot of times I'm an outsider to the shooting sports. I still believe that. I'm still kind of getting indoctrinated into all of it. I remember what my impression was of the shooting sports, and it was different. It was what the media portrayed it to be. When you get involved in it, you see how different it is and how diverse it is, how many people there are in here, and just it's so different than what anybody outside of it would have to believe. And that's what I love about Under Armour getting involved in it, is they're starting to perpetuate that and spread that on a much bigger scale than any of us ever could. Then, the 2A community is relatively small, as large as it is. Under Armour is a massive multinational corporation. I think they're the 4th largest sports apparel company in the entire world. With like the market cap of the sports apparel company is like $300 billion. We talk about the 2A space, competitive shooting space, is probably about maybe 1 billion, maybe 3 billion at like its highest reach. So the ability and their ability to influence what we're doing and to help push this into a much bigger scale is tremendous. And they've put their money where their mouth is, and they've been out there doing it every single time. And I'm ecstatic about that for sure.
Yeah, it was really cool to meet guys from Under Armour and have them ask like, "Hey, what do you think of like the stuff that we make?" Like, and genuinely like mean like they wanted to know what you thought about it. So that like from a perspective of a competitor and legitimately trying to hide, like not wanting to, you know, be known or anything and just wanting to see what it was about, that was cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's so they're going so far as we're working on a shoe, right? So we're gonna have a Tactical Games shoe. One of the biggest pieces of feedback and something Jared, since I've known Jared, has been trying to do is get shorts with belt loops on them. Why don't we have athletic shorts that have belt loops on them? Why doesn't anybody make them? Under Armour's gonna create a short with belt loops on it, right? Like how incredible is that we're gonna have these commercially available for people to go out and purchase? I think it's things like that. It's they're really getting behind the sport and treating it like a sport, like what we believe it to be.
Yeah, and it's real. It comes across as not just a company trying to make a buck on it. It comes across as they care about it, like all the things that they're doing.
I think last time we had on the last podcast, we talked a little bit about the gear check forms that we keep, and you know, can show people the metric and their growth and stuff. Well, when we're bringing on a sponsor, we're vetting them just as much, right? And we basically tell them like, here's the recipe for success. And if you're not willing to do these things, like you're basically just writing a check, and we can't promise you're going to be successful. But if you show up to events, if you're reps, and a lot of people like in the two-way space, and I can be a little bit more critical now because I'm technically an owner, but I'm burn the bridge on the way behind me. But a rep is a representative of a company, right? A rep should not live the rest of their life in a cubicle at the company that they work at. Your job as a representative is to represent your company. Representation means you're out in front of the people that you're trying to sell stuff to. And it is infuriating when you see a big company have these plans and they give you money to support them, and you send them drop boxes with literally $20,000 worth of content, sometimes more. Like over the year, a typical sponsor for us will probably get what would have cost them $100,000 to create in content and photos and videos and stuff like that. And that's for like a gold platinum type level sponsor, right? And then like in several instances, some of the reps that have been handling the sponsorships have either left the company or been fired or whatever. And then another person comes in and they're like, hey, we're not too impressed with what you're doing. Like, we're not getting much. And you're like, what do you, have you not seen the Dropbox? And they're like, what are you talking about? And Nick will send them the link to the Dropbox, and they open it up and like, oh my God, where has this been? And it's like, well, it's been in their email, and, you know, I don't know if they're seeing it or not. And, you know, by the way, you know, if you show up to a match, you can do really well. And so the companies that buy in, they send their reps, they use our media when we send it to them. And a lot of our media isn't really Tactical Games like centric. It's like we created product photos for them and sent them their product. And we'll see their product photos, and it's like, man, these things are garbage. Like, our product photos are way better than why aren't they using our stuff? And it turns out that they didn't even open the Dropbox to see that like we made product photos for their, you know, their guns and their shirts and their all this other stuff. And the companies that buy in, they show up and they use this stuff, they come back every year. The companies that just write us a check, they give us a story at the end of the year that they're like, well, this didn't give us an ROI. It's like, well, I know it didn't, because you didn't get involved. You didn't come out to a match. You didn't open the Dropbox. You didn't use our media. You didn't do anything. You just wrote us a check. And so that's kind of a big frustration at the end of the year, is when we were working our butts off to over deliver, and then we get told that like oh, well, y'all didn't really do your job. It's like, yeah, we did. We did way more than we should have. And it just turns out they weren't opening their emails and they weren't getting involved. And, that's a rep needs to remember that rep is not a word. It's representative is the rest of that. And they need to become that. So
Yeah.
that's my
As a shooter, that email that you sent out with the links to the Dropbox, like looking through just the amount of photos of competitor stuff, it was really cool first, and there's a shit ton of them in there, but it was an awesome representation of like what you're going to see. Like 99% of it smiling. And it's not that you're picking and cherry picking all that stuff. Like everyone is genuinely having a good time. And if a company like you're saying comes out and sees that, and they see like how much fun people are having at this, they get why this is such a positive influence in the industry, or even outside the industry.
Yep.
And
Nick's probably blowing my messages up to shut up, but
you're not wrong. I mean, there's great examples of it. I'm not going to name companies by names, but we've seen that. We've seen companies that I'll come out and say it, in the 2A space, the communication is dog shit from most companies. I mean, I'm used to coming from a defense contractor where if I didn't answer my email, there could have been $1 million deal on the line. It could have been a subcontractor asking me about something of, a lack of communication affects the business and the flow of business and return on investment. So when emails are sent and they don't get replied to, or when they don't get opened, it tarnishes things like that. So I guess what I'm saying is if you're a 2A company, make sure you're hiring the right people.
At least know how to check their email.
Yeah.
From the same perspective, the companies that have done well, like the Vortexes and things like that, you see them doing all those things, not just opening emails, but checking in on you guys, coming out to the events, talking to people. Like you see how the growth has just been from them taking the time to see what really is needed and then just filling that gap, like making the cool thing.
Vortex is a great example. I just pulled the data from our Texas event and sent it to him. And Jared will attest to this. When he started shooting, he was one of the only guys out there shooting Vortex. In our Texas event, we had over 55% of our competitors were shooting Vortex optics.
Yeah.
That you can't go to another match and see that many competitors shooting that. And out of 200 competitors, that means that 110 of them had Vortex optics on their weapons. Like that's freaking awesome. And a company like Night Force saw that, understands that, and now they want to jump in because they don't want to let Vortex have all the market share. And last year we saw the same thing with Atlas and Staccato, and it was awesome to see two companies come together and really just, instead of just trying to big D one another, they're saying, hey, let's put our stuff against one another and see what kind of tests we can actually get out of this, and put it into competition and let the best shooters go out there and kind of see how it rolls. And that's always been something that's pretty cool to me and pretty cool.
Yeah, Atlas and Staccato is a very interesting relationship that worked extremely well. They didn't see it as two competing companies in the space. They saw it as two companies that make 2011s and they want everybody to have a 2011.
Yeah.
And it was more about let's see how many of these people we can get to have a 2011 in their hand. It wasn't about it needed to be a Staccato or it needed to be an Atlas. It was let's see how many of these people we can convert over to 2011. And it was incredibly successful for both of them because they came in and they sold a ton of, Atlas told us to stop selling pistols and to start focusing on magazines because they were too far behind. And
perfect. Not going to listen, but I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a perfect problem to have created, so anyway, that's it's a cool thing to see. And it's also cool to see literally every rep that's come in and done replied to emails, built a good relationship with their sponsor shooters, all that stuff. They're the ones that are back year after year after year and seeing great success within our space.
Yeah, and I think it helps a lot when you are buying something from somebody You know, if I go and I buy a Vortex scope, it's not I'm going to buy this scope made by Vortex. It's like, oh, I'm going to go buy one of Nick's scopes. If I'm going to buy something from RCBS over here, you know, it's like, oh, you know, Will and Lori, because they're the people from the companies that I see at matches. You know, if I have a random dumb question, it's like, oh, I'm sure they're going to be at this match next weekend. I'll go chat with them about it. And, you know, you'll see them sitting there and it's like, oh, you're in the, you know, you got a Vortex. Are you work for Vortex? Oh, hey, let me ask you about this scope from 1996 or whatever. You know, but just having the people there to interact with, I think helps a lot with the shooters themselves getting real interest in the company, because it makes it, you know, if I'm going to spend this money, I'm going to spend it with this dude that I drank a beer with after the match last weekend, not, oh, I'm going to buy this off Amazon.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Luckily we've been able to, one of my friends that's a shooter and a business owner in the space, and I'm not going to name it because of what I'm about to say, but he was saying that we're very lucky because we kind of have a new shot at the shooting sports, right? Because we're bringing in so many people that have never shot any other shooting sports discipline, right? So they're not coming in with a preconceived idea of what it should be. They're coming in and they're becoming part of something that exists. And when they come in and they get a sponsor, the first thing they do is they call me or Nick. I mean, not so much me anymore, but well, I guess they'll still call me just because I'm friends with most of them. But they call me, Nick, you know, whoever, and they're like, "Hey guys, what do we do?" And it's like, "Hey, they're calling you because they're interested in you as a shooter in this, and this is what we think we should do. But the most important thing is you need to form a personal relationship with them, and not just be somebody that's getting." And they do that. And when they do that, like, I don't really know of anybody that has gotten a sponsorship that has been like let go, you know, over the last 3-4 years. Like, I really can't think. There's been maybe a company that came into the space and left, and because they're the big shot callers in a board meeting decided they weren't going to be part of the shooting sports anymore. You know, so they had to pull out of the industry, but like the people that were shooting for them are still friends with the reps that were there and working with them in other areas now. So we get to kind of like say, hey, listen, don't just take this product and disappear. Like, make friends with these people, ask these people every month, hey, what do you need from me? What do you want from me? And so we get to kind of like train them how to be a good sponsored shooter. And that is just as important as the tactical games doing our job, is that shooter doing their job for that company, because then that company is having a big, good overall experience with the whole, like, as a whole.
Right. And one thing that you guys talk about is the new shooters, right? You're not just saying that because your demographic is totally different than any other match I've been to. I've been to a lot of matches. So like pulling in ladies, pulling in male elite, how do you get that demographic? Because I'd say you have about a third of your shooters are women.
Yeah, we're it depends on the match, but we're generally in that 20 to 30% range. Yep.
How do you do that? Every other shooting sport wants to know right now.
Well, Jared, when he first came onto the company, did some pretty awesome things. So those TGUs, the Tactical Games Universities that we talked about earlier, he put on, I think it was a year's worth of free events that were women only. And it was really just to encourage them to come out, get comfortable, give them some experience behind a gun. You know, we lend out guns to those shooters that are coming in that might not know, you know, or might not have anything. So it empowers them. So they come in, they've got a little bit more confidence, and then they meet the other women that are there. You know, there's not a ton of women, and I'm not just going to blanket this, that will show up just by themselves. So a lot of them come in and they know somebody else, so they have a friend that's competing, and it just keeps on growing off of that. And it's been pretty incredible to see. Our women's division is respectable and oftentimes more unpredictable than the men's side of things. Like, there's a pretty good foregone conclusion that if any of the top 10 male athletes are at an event, it's going to be, you know, a mix up between one of those. I think it's pretty similar in 3-gun. It's not hard to guess who's going to be at the top of the leaderboard. On the female side of things in our sport, you never know. they show up and they just like, they battle it out, and it's really freaking fun to watch because they're out there just crushing it. And like they're on their side, the fitness side is elevated pretty tremendously. And now it's the shooting that you're starting to see elevate, where Jared said earlier, you know, on the men's side of things, to be competitive, you need to be an 80-85% shooter. To win, you probably need to be an 87-90% shooter. On the women's side, a couple of years ago, probably 40-50%. But you're seeing that creep up into like the 60 and 70 percentile now, where you need to shoot in that in order to be competitive at the top division. So that's cool to see. As far as the LE side of things, it's the same on the mill community as well. I will never say, early on in the tactical games, there was a lot of things and that were militarized. It was like there was a statement that was like, this is the closest thing to war without getting shot at. We got a lot of flack from the veteran community and the military community because of that. A lot of people felt disrespected by that, even though the guy that started the company was a 23 or 24 year, I think he did 21 years in special operations, 24 years in the Army. He was with spent a lot of time with 7th Group. He had that experience, so he had the right to say that, but people outside didn't know that. So we really went away from all those militaristic terms, because it's not that. It is fitness and it is shooting. And those two things combined, to me, are tactical, right? So that's like, people are like, what's tactical about this? Well, you have to be fit and you have to know how to shoot in order to win this sport. If you can do those two things, you're going to do pretty well. And if you're fit and you're good behind the gun, if you're in the military or you're in law enforcement, you're probably going to be a little bit better at your job than somebody who's not those two things. So the way I look at it in our sport is, if you compete, if you're good in our sport, it's going to elevate your career. It's going to make you better at your career. I'm not saying training for this is going to qualify you for, selection. I'm not, this isn't going to make you a SEAL. You're not going to be able to go out there tomorrow and get into a special unit in the military. But training for our sport will make you more fit, and it will make you a more proficient shooter. There is zero doubt in that. So if you are those two things, I think it's always going to help in your department, in your unit. It's going to help around.
Yeah, for sure. And even I'm not going to say I did a lot of dry fire practice for this, but I felt like I was a better version of me having done it. One, because I always wanted to do it, but two, it was fun to do something different that had more physical fitness in it. And that just, it was enjoyable. Like, it was enjoyable feeling good after you're dead tired. It was funny being tall, stepping over, relatively short obstacles for me, and watching, short people step over those with like the help of a kick stool or something. It was fun.
We laugh at you whenever we have to get really low or in really small, and we can do that. So.
Doesn't matter. So do you think you've talked about like the community first type thing? Do you think that's a reason that you're seeing like the families come out too? Because that was another big thing that I noticed. If there was a wife there, the husband was supporting. If there was a husband shooting, the wife was supporting or competing. Like, there were kids out in the tent city. Like, it wasn't just a whole bunch of dudes getting out in the field and shooting guns. It was a community. It was the closest to a swim meet I've ever seen at a shooting match.
Well, I think so. Our schedule lends to it, right? So, so we have to explain to people that in our sport, one of the downsides of it is we have to explain to people that, like, so Corey, you've competed, you stay behind and you count reps for the person behind you, right?
Yeah.
You make sure they do things in the order they're supposed to do it and stuff. And people sometimes complain like, man, I gotta stay and watch this person after me. But coming from other shooting sports like 3-gun and USPSA, like, you stay after you shoot and you're there before you shoot, because you have to reset every single shooter resetting, right? But in our sport, you have about 2 or 3 hours where there is no resetting. Like, you go sit down at your tent and eat and, catch friends and recover from the event that you just did and get ready for the event that you're going to do. So if your wife and kids are there, it's not like a 3-gun match. You're like, hey, gotta go reset. Hey, gotta go back and disappear on this trail again and reset. So there's really, you can spend all weekend there, and you spend all weekend with your family. You're really only shooting. I mean, I say only, one of the reasons I told Nick why like 3-gun was kind of getting old to me is like you show up and if you're a good shooter, you shoot for about 6 minutes over a weekend. And in this sport, you show up and you're competing for several hours. Like there's several hours that you are competing.
Yeah.
But there's also several hours where you're recovering and you can spend a significant amount of time like with your wife and kids and stuff like that. And they get to see you doing this stuff and you get to interact with them and have downtime. So people really do turn it into an excuse to go on vacation, right? So they'll go to a weekend or they'll shoot Saturday, Sunday, and they'll stay at the spot that we're at. And that's one reason why we pick the locations that we do is they're good vacation spots.
Smart.
So people will stay like 2 or 3 days after the match and go to the national parks and, do all that stuff and then go home and they turn it into a family vacation. So,
yeah. The other thing that I noticed was everyone in your division, because they're counting reps for each other, you genuinely want the other person to do well because it kind of reflected on you. So like when Daniel was helping me through like figuring out what all this was, he genuinely wanted me to do well, even though like we're competing against each other. Like that was also very unique in the space.
So,
oh, go ahead, Jared.
Just real short. No matter how competitive you are, it sucks to watch somebody suffer when they're doing something. And it's not just like a 15-second malfunction. Like if they can't get over a wall, it really sucks to stand there and watch somebody for 12 minutes not be able to get over a wall. So like, regardless of how cold-hearted you are, at some point, like the little part of heart you have left will come out and you're like, come on, man, like you got it this time. There's a lot of reasons. But I think the main thing is it's everybody wants to see everybody do well. And you always want to beat somebody the right way, not because, they dropped around or they did whatever, but I'll let
No, that's exactly it. And what I was going to say. I think it was Jared that said this. It was, you want to beat your competitors at their best, so like you'll see, we have group chats and Jared and I are both still competitors. We both love this sport, like group chats where they share information. They'll train one another. They'll go out on range days on weekends and help one another. I think everybody genuinely wants to see this sport and this discipline continue to grow. And the way that you do that is by touching more people, reaching more people, continuing to get it out there. We also go 5 wide. So I don't know that there's another shooting sport where you're not just shooting by yourself. So it almost feels like a team sport, even though you're competing against the other people that are out there on the line with you.
Right.
When you have 4 other people going at the same pace, it pushes you, it pushes them. The energy out there is just like, it's electric sometime. At the team event, we had 10 people out on the lanes. You have 10 people out there working their asses off towards a common goal. It's pretty cool to see. So that's always been one of my favorite parts about that, is seeing everybody else out there doing the exact same thing as you.
And the first person that finished was also the first person cheering on everyone else to finish. That was another big thing that I took away. And I don't know if that came from CrossFit or if you guys started that, because I've seen it in both. But it really was, you genuinely, like, you finish and before you're even like through dry heaving, you're like cheering someone else on.
Yeah, a lot of those people out there are your best friends, so you always cheer them on.
I mean, I just talk crap to Nick the entire time.
That's fair. That's motivation.
Brutally as I possibly can think of in the moment.
I mean, the vampire effect, like you said, people don't want to see others suffer, but like a little bit in jitsu, like, a little wrestling, maybe a little suffering, like, well, this will make you better suffering.
Yeah.
So you guys also had very good range officers, like very good range officers. And that's something that a lot of matches in sports undervalue, I think. So how do you get such a good RO where they're not just running on time, they're not just keeping a schedule, but they're also encouraging competitors, and really, like, how do you foster that?
So, much like you guys have, I say you guys, I don't mean to group you, but the 3-gun community, much like you have the RO shoots, right? Generally it's Friday where the ROs go out and shoot the match.
Yep.
We vet our stages beforehand. So a lot of our ROs show up. First of all, they're picked from our community. They're picked from competitors. They're people that have been out there, understand the suffering, understand the scoring system, understand why we don't institute silly ass standards into stuff, right? Like why things are done for a very specific reason and why we do that. If they have that basic knowledge, we bring them out there and they show up Wednesday night or Thursday morning, they vet stages. They're out there helping us build some of the stuff. They're seeing it from the ground up, seeing it get developed. We meet with them Thursday night, we meet with them Friday night, we talk through all of these things. One of the things that I like to do is I'll go through a stage brief and I'll say, all right, read me your stage brief. And I'm going to ask you the questions that I'm going to ask because how I would game this or that I see. And then you start to dissect it, and then they're prepared by the time they go up and speak in front of their first group of 75 or 100 people, whatever it might be. They know their shit. They're on top of it. Like they can go and they can drop it out there right away. And that lends to confidence, and confidence lends to being a better RO, in my opinion. That's the first thing you need, is you need to be confident in the information that you're presenting, and you know it from as a competitor and from the RO side of things.
Yeah, getting that feedback and asking the ROs like what they think about and how they'd like to run the stage, that's important, I think, because it gives them that personal involvement, like that accountability, right? Then they want to make that stage better. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
I agree with that for sure. ROs can make or break.
There's and Nick may have said it.
Confidence, and confidence lends to being a better RO, in my opinion. That's the first thing you.
Yeah.
I agree with that for sure. ROs can make or break.
There's and Nick may have said it. Are y'all here?
Wasn't me.
Yeah.
Wasn't me.
I think there was an echo. Oh goodness.
I turned on their live feed. It's all right.
It was me.
So
I was
anyways,
trying to share it to a different page. I don't know if Nick said it or not because I was paying attention to something else, but there's a lot of weekends that the person that would win the match is an RO. There's been several weekends that first, second, and third in one or both the elite divisions would be won by the people that are volunteering. And I know, like, as a competitor, as a good competitor, it is tough to be out there volunteering, watching, knowing that you could be winning if you were there. And I just, from like the competitive part of me, it's hard to watch sometimes, but there are several times that the best people that are the best competitors are the ones that are giving me the stage brief, and they give their time back to the sport. And it's really rare if you think about the other shooting sports that the literally the best of the best are there running a stage, and it's a rare thing.
So do you think that the encouragement that is in CrossFit then crosses over into tactical games because it is so similar? And like, do you think that tactical games is kind of like all of the encouragement of CrossFit, but all the excitement of shooting? Not that CrossFit's not exciting, but
yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting. Any part of it is, but I'll let Nick talk about that.
No, I agree. There's people draw a comparison to CrossFit in the tactical games a lot because we go out there and we do fitness, and fitness on any scale. I don't know. All of a sudden, people are just assume it's CrossFit. What I agree with you is that we definitely draw the same type of encouragement, right? People cheering one another on, people genuinely wanting one another to do better. But I don't think that's unique to CrossFit. I think that's something that is common across a lot of different sports. Like if you look at the powerlifting community or strongman competitions, like those guys, they love each other, right? They want each other to do well, to prosper, to grow. MMA is the same way. Jiu-jitsu is like that. CrossFit was known for it because that was like the CrossFit gym mentality, right? You push one another, and the community side of things as well. And I do think that is common to a lot of sports, but it's definitely prevalent in ours.
So Nick, where do you see the tactical games in 5 years?
Hopefully not on fire.
Yes, let it burn.
Man, I would just love to continue to see the growth that we've experienced thus far. There is such a dire need for it now. I feel like in our country is like just in bringing one another together, right? A sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of like doing something bigger than you and being involved in something bigger than you. I think we have the ability to make a really large impact on securing the Second Amendment in this country and continuing to push it and further it. I think that we are going to start to familiarize people with, so we share content gets shared in our sport a lot different than you might see in other shooting disciplines, right? I don't know if you guys have noticed this, if you guys follow our social media. We have this like content bubble that goes around, and it's athletes and competitors in our sport sharing their photos that they got from the weekend, sharing those things, and then other people see it. We get about 2 million impressions every month. That means 2 million people are exposed to a shooting sport every month. And to me, that's incredible, right? That's now 2 million new people that know that AR-15s aren't just for military, right? They're like, their prior exposure might have only been in like US Army ads and Call of Duty 2. Right now they see like, oh, there's more people that are out there doing this. Maybe this is something that I'm interested in. Maybe this is something that I want to get involved with. So just continuing to grow like that. I would love to see matches that have 1,000 competitors at them. Like, how cool would that be to see a televised match that you could watch on TV that was interesting and not, like Jared said, just some guy running into the woods and you see him for the first 15 seconds of shooting. I would love to see more of that and see that kind of growth and continue to get more big name sponsors that aren't afraid to jump in and support a two-way adjacent company or a company that's involved in the two-way space.
Yeah, the broad reach that we have, I think hopefully in the next 5 years, and we have in the last 2 or 3, getting a broad reach is very important, and getting a very specific reach is very important. And I'm not going to really go into names and stuff, but we've gone out and connected with very important individuals that can make change, right? And
one of those.
when you're and there's several more that are interested in coming out and competing, and when it's already been in the news. The impact that we've had has already hit mainstream media, has already been talked about, has already educated several people that can truly make a change, right? Like you can have 50,000 people marching down the street, and people are going to forget next month. If you change the right person's mind, it only takes one. And if you change the right person's mind, so there's 2 things that the Tactical Games does. It throws a broad net, but sometimes it's a very specific net. And I think I've sat there and I've watched the news and watched the people talk on the news, and I know that the things that they are saying, and with the educated way they're talking about what they're saying, is because they were exposed to the Tactical Games, and because they were exposed to the shooting community, because they got used to the lingo and they don't sound dumb when they're talking about what they're talking about. But that's a very specific thing that we've been able to do, is because of the exposure we can give to people, and because we have stayed out of politics 100%. You will never see, and I know that Nick's committed to it as well, we don't engage in politics at all. Period. If you want to shoot guns and you want to work out, you can come to a shooting competition. And obviously we're very two-way centric, obviously, but you're not going to catch us commenting on something that's outside of our two-way space. And that's it makes it a very open space for people to come into that wouldn't have otherwise. And we've seen it happen already. It's happening currently. It's going to happen in the future. And if you can change the right person's mind, you can change millions of people's minds. And that's way more important than like getting a couple 3-gunners to come out and shoot a sport. So but anyway, that's that rant. So we'll
So Corey's not the important one.
God, no, definitely not.
Corey was important to me.
So okay, since you've stepped away from your leadership role, are you going to return to glory in November and win another nationals?
Um, I'll be there.
Okay.
You know, there is I think speaking of the women's division, it's very exciting to watch the women's division. The women's division is still definitely a race, right? It's a toss-up. Like there's 5 to 7 people that could win.
Yeah.
The men's elite,
Texas was within a point, right? Like
yeah,
half a percentage point. Yeah.
men's elite, and especially still at the national championship, you know, it is tight. And the men's elite, there are truly, I don't know, Nick, maybe tops 3, 4, maybe 4 people that have a realistic shot. And you know, Hepner's a freak athlete. Hepner is a legitimate genius. I'm not just saying that. Like, dude's smart, like super smart. He's an incredible athlete. He's gonna be tough to beat. That being said, I will say, like, I got hurt this year at the championship and a couple minutes into the first stage, and just kind of like coasted through the rest of the weekend. And I didn't want to stop. You know, I didn't want to be that guy. But I will say that Nick's performance will probably suffer coming into the next couple of years. I was not the same person that I was the year before, and I was not the same person that I was the year before that. So running, even though I stayed out of, you know, I was, and Nick can speak to it, I was 100% out of the programming. I was even 100% out of the event planning. Like, I went out there and helped them move some stuff around with a Bobcat, kind of like logistics stuff.
Yeah.
But the stress of being there and knowing that every single thing that was going on, still the weight of that landed on my shoulders. And I see something in the programming that nobody else would see or probably notice, but to me, I see it and I know it's not as good as it could have been, and that's weighing on me. And then, you know, I see something else and that's weighing on me. And as Nick said, like, I'm super critical of things. So there's nothing that I'm not noticing wherever I'm walking 100% of the time. And so yeah, I'll be out there, and hopefully I'm a little bit better than I was last year. But it's all that to say, I think Hepner is, I don't think he's reached an untouchable level. But it's not going to be, I knew it was going to happen the 2 previous years. There was no doubt in my mind what was happening when I showed up to the match. There's no guarantee with Hepner around. he's good. He's really good. So, and I don't know if you follow him, the dude has become a very good shooter. It speaks to his athleticism. Like, he moves like a shooter, and a very athletic one. And he's starting to get really good. So
that might be a fun race to watch.
It's not really a race. I just hope that if you want to watch like an old man outshoot like one of the world's best athletes that has ever lived, that might be something that you can watch. But a lot of people don't realize that about him. You know, the level of athleticism and the level of fitness and athleticism that CrossFit has produced. And you know, now Tactical Games is producing. This is like the first time in the human history that you're seeing people that can run a 5-minute mile and back squat 500 pounds in the same day. You know, and that's, in Hepner, he probably can't do that, but I can guarantee you he can back squat probably 445 and run a 530 mile. You know, he is an absolute freak of nature. So, like, he's literally one of the fittest people that have ever lived. And it's crazy to watch him do things. It's supernatural to watch him sometimes. That honestly, I got hurt. I was thinking about pulling out. My wife wanted me to pull out. Jared Stevens, the guy, he was looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? You're going to hurt yourself. I wanted to compete because I wanted to stay in the lane next to Hepner and watch him compete for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
He's an absolute freak. So
Be fun, something to look forward to. So for anybody that is wanting to kind of follow it, when is the championship?
Championship will be November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We're going to be splitting time between a couple ranges this year, a couple ranges local to Florence, Texas. So it'll be fun to watch, and we're working on, hopefully by the time it happens, we'll be nearly live streaming the event. So YouTube will probably be a good option for being able to watch that.
Awesome. Sounds good. Do we have any lives?
A few, but they're mostly asking about Under Armour product, so probably not good to ask.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, I think with that, we can wind it down to shout outs. We will start with Corey.
I just want to shout Nick and Jared for coming on again and letting me show up a little bit late to the match and making sure I got through everything safely and all the way. So that was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
But seriously, like, no jokes, they shepherded me through and it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Times. All right. How about Greg?
All right, I got a GSL suppressors, PDC custom, and Hunter's HD gold for my blind self.
Awesome. All right. Let's go, Nick. You got any shout outs?
I'm not going to shout out, but I'm going to call out Jen. You said that you wanted to come out and check out that Masters division, so that's open for you. So I'm calling you out, hoping you're going to show up this year and compete with us sometime.
Does it come with a walker?
It can. With Girasol, what's the other thing that you do on there? Yeah, it's going to
I
come.
know. We were just
Ibuprofen.
talking about. We were just talking today at work about how I was like, how out of shape I am because, like, I guess it's been almost a year and a half now. A year and a half ago, I did Mammoth, and now I'm like, I haven't been doing anything. I've got to get back into it. So you never know. Maybe I'll show up.
There you go. I'm calling you out. Get that on it'll put on your calendar, and then that's a goal to reach for.
There's a couple that aren't that far from us. So over here in South Carolina and Georgia. So yeah. All right. I've been called out. At least it wasn't some ice bucket challenge or something. That's the last things I got called out for, I think, from my
hey, you'll wish it was an ice bucket by the time you're done with the weekend.
That's right. All right, Jared, you got any shout outs?
You guys, we appreciate you guys for having us on. It definitely gives us exposure to a group of people that may not be already out competing. And for y'all's listeners, Corey showed up a little late, meaning 5 or 6 hours late. And
I got permission. I was running another match.
he got permission. I told him it was fine. But what that meant is that he completed all of the physical events in roughly 2.5 hours, maybe. And everybody else got to do it. Yeah. Everybody else got to do it in probably a 9-hour time frame. So anyway, there was literally a time where he was still breathing hard and sweating, and I grabbed him. I was like, hey man, you got to go to the next one.
I wasn't even breathing hard.
Not only that,
really hard.
the dude's fit. He's really fit. He did a really good job. And he's not afraid to do it for the gram. I appreciate it. I made a really cool video.
Thanks, buddy.
Burned down a stage for a video, but the targets were fleeting him. So anyway.
So everyone's wearing a carrier. Why does the guy behind the target get
Anyway, but I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. And anytime, like we've said before, if y'all have something else coming up, like y'all had news this time. So anything, we don't mind sharing or, bringing y'all back on again to talk through some things. But so for me, for shout outs, I just want to shout y'all out. I always shout our guests out because I know it is, a couple of hours of your Tuesday night that you're spending with us and entertaining our all of our viewers. So we really appreciate y'all coming on and what y'all are doing for the shooting sports. I think Tactical Games is doing some great things with mainstream, trying to get it out a little bit more instead of just our little bubble. I think sometimes we think everybody knows about shooting sports because all of our friends know about shooting sports. But when you get outside of our bubble, it really is. I mean, I still have people go, "You do what?" So I appreciate everything that y'all are doing. I think it's a huge endeavor that y'all got Under Armour on board and working towards some other non-endemic sponsors. So shout out to Tactical Games, and we'll be watching to see if Jared can come defend his title.
No, Hebner beat me last year. There is no defending it. So I got the 2 before that, and then
Okay, that's right. But you got to get it back.
Yeah, gotta get it
We'll
back.
be watching to see what happens. So hopefully y'all have that live streamed and we can all watch it.
Probably not gonna happen, but I'll give it hell.
Give it all you got. That's right. All right. And with that, that'll be a wrap for episode 403. And we will see y'all next time.